Grit. That was the first thing. Sharp, salty grit between my teeth. Taste of copper. Taste of chemical. My head throbbed a dull, rhythmic pounding that seemed to match the shaking of the ground beneath me. No, the ground wasn't shaking. Something was moving away. Vibration. Fading. I tried to open my eyes. Nothing happened. Darkness pressed against my face, heavy and tight. Not the darkness of night, but the suffocation of fabric. A blindfold. Coarse wool dug into my cheekbones, smelling of old closet space and mothballs. I tried to reach for it. My hands didn't move. Shoulders wrenched back. Pain shot through my rotator cuffs, hot and immediate. My wrists burned. Rope. Rough braided rope tied tight enough to cut off circulation. My fingers felt like sausages, swollen and distant. Breathe, the nurse in my head commanded. Assess airway. Assess circulation. I sucked in a breath and choked. The smell hit me then. Not desert sage. Not the dry dust of Nevada. Gasoline. It was everywhere. Soaking into the collar of my silk blouse, the one I'd bought for the anniversary dinner. Stinging the scrape on my cheek. The fumes were thick, oily, coating the back of my throat. Don't panic. Panic uses oxygen. I forced myself to listen. The vibration was gone now, replaced by a sound I knew well, having grown up in this state. The hollow, lonely whistle of wind moving over flat land. And something else. Tires on gravel, far away. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Then a sound that froze the blood in my veins. Laughter. It drifted back on the wind light and airy. A woman's laugh. Not malicious, not scary. Just happy. The kind of laugh you release when a joke lands perfectly at a cocktail party. My stomach turned over. I knew that laugh. I had heard it every day of my childhood. I had heard it 3 hours ago across a candlelit table when she toasted to my 7 years of marriage. Shelley. The car engine revved a deep, throaty growl I'd recognize anywhere. Travis's SUV, the one we bought when Ethan was born because it had the highest safety rating. The sound faded, swallowed by the immense silence of the desert, taking my husband and my sister back to the city, leaving me here. I lay still, cheek pressed against sharp rocks. The cold began to settle in. Not the cool breeze of evening, but the sudden plunging freeze of the high desert after midnight. It seeped through my thin clothes, hunting for warmth. They were gone. I wasn't dead. Why wasn't I dead? I wriggled, scraping my chin against the gravel. The blindfold slipped a fraction. Just enough. I rubbed my face against the shoulder of my blouse, pushing the fabric up until my right eye cleared the obstruction. Blurry. My vision swam the after effects of whatever they'd put in my wine. Ketamine Rohypnol. As an ER nurse, I should know the half-life, the symptoms. But right now, my medical training was just background noise to the terror. Stars. Millions of them. A canopy of cold, indifferent light stretching forever. I rolled onto my side, gasping at the pain in my shoulders. And I saw it. Sitting 3 feet away. A red plastic jerry can. The cap was off. The smell of gasoline wasn't an accident. They hadn't just dumped me here. They had soaked the ground. They had brought the accelerant. I stared at that red plastic container illuminated by starlight. It looked innocent, like something you'd see in a suburban garage next to a lawnmower. But here in the middle of nowhere, it was a tombstone. They meant to burn me. My sister. My husband. They had driven me out here drugged and bound, intended to light a match and drive away. Why didn't they? Maybe the wind was too high. Maybe a car passed on the distant highway. Or maybe, just maybe, Travis, who couldn't even kill a spider in our bathroom, had lost his nerve. I shivered, a violent tremor that rattled my teeth. Tears leaked from my eyes, hot and stinging against the gasoline-soaked collar. "Ethan," I whispered. My voice was a cracked ruin. My son. He was with them. He was at home in his race car bed, sleeping while his father and aunt drove out to the desert to turn his mother into ash. Rage. It hit me harder than the cold. A sudden molten heat in my chest. It wasn't fear anymore. It was clarity. They thought I was gone. They thought the desert would finish what they were too cowardly to start. I dug my heels into the dirt. Pushed. I didn't know which way the highway was, but I knew I couldn't stay next to that gas can. I couldn't die here. Not tonight. I had to survive. For Ethan. Time became a loop. Dragging myself, stopping to breathe, shivering until my muscles locked up. The silence was absolute. No crickets, no coyotes, just the sound of my own ragged breathing and the blood rushing in my ears. Then light. A beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the scrub brush like a lighthouse. I froze. Did they come back? Did they realize they forgot something? I pressed myself flat against the ground, trying to become invisible. The light swept over me, then snapped back, blinded me. The rumble of a heavy diesel engine idled somewhere close. Not an SUV, a semi. Jesus Christ! The voice was gravel and smoke. Heavy boots crunched on the rocks. I tried to scramble backward, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. Easy, lady. Easy now. A shadow fell over me. A man. Older. Baseball cap pulled low. He smelled of stale coffee and diesel fuel, the most beautiful smell in the world. He knelt, and I flinched. I ain't gonna hurt you, the stranger said. He pulled a pocket knife from his belt. I stopped breathing. But he moved behind me, gentle hands avoiding my bruised skin. Snick. The tension in my shoulders released as the ropes fell away. Blood rushed back into my hands, painful and prickling. I slumped forward, catching myself on palms that felt raw. Here. He shrugged off a heavy denim jacket and draped it over my shoulders. It was warm. Can you walk? I nodded, though I wasn't sure. He helped me up, his grip firm but respectful. My legs felt like rubber. We were closer to the road than I thought, just down an embankment. His rig, a massive 18-wheeler, was idling on the shoulder hazard lights, pulsing an amber rhythm against the night. Did you see them? I croaked. My throat felt like it was full of glass. The trucker stopped. He looked at me, his eyes shadowed under the brim of his hat. Passed a black SUV about 30 minutes back, moving fast toward Reno. Travis. I got a dash cam, the man said. He pointed a thumb back at his truck. Runs 24/7, caught the plates as they passed. I noticed because they were going 80 in a 50 zone. He helped me toward the cab, then stopped. He looked back at the spot where I'd been lying. The flashlight beam hit the red jerry can. The old man went still. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked back at me. He took in my gasoline-soaked blouse, the burns on my wrists, the terror in my eyes. He didn't ask what happened. He knew. He had the look of a man who had seen the worst of humanity before, maybe in a jungle 50 years ago. Wait here, he said. He walked back to the truck, opened a side compartment, and pulled out a large, heavy-duty plastic bag. Then he marched back to the gas can. He didn't touch the handle. He used the bag like a glove, carefully tipping the can into it, sealing it tight. He walked back, carrying the bag like it was a loaded weapon. Evidence, he grunted, tossing it into the storage box on the side of his rig and locking it. Cops might not believe a lady who's drugged and confused, but fingerprints don't lie. He opened the passenger door for me. The warmth from the cab rushed out, smelling of heat and safety. I'm Carl, he said. Dana, I whispered. Well, Dana, Carl said, climbing into the driver's seat. Let's get you to a hospital, and then we're gonna nail the bastards. The emergency room was too bright. Fluorescent lights hummed with a headache-inducing frequency. It smelled of bleach and latex, my office smells. My world. But I wasn't a nurse tonight. I was the patient in Bay 4. My blood work had come back. Traces of a sedative, dehydration, mild hypothermia. The doctor, a young resident who looked exhausted, had catalogued my bruises with clinical detachment. Now, a detective stood at the foot of my bed. Detective Vance. He looked like he'd been awake for 2 days. Mrs. Morrow, he said, flipping open a notepad. The trucker Mr. Whitaker said he found you near Highway 50. Do you remember how you got there? I opened my mouth to say his name. Travis. The word sat on my tongue, heavy and toxic. If I say it what happens, Travis would deny it. He'd say I was drunk, hysterical, that I wandered off. Shelley would back him up. Dana has been under so much stress lately, officer. She's been acting strange. It was my word against 2 upstanding citizens. A nurse versus an architect and a beloved sister. And what did I have? A trucker's word. a blurry dashcam video of a car passing by a gas can that Carl had locked away. If the police took the can now, it would go into evidence. It might get lost, mishandled. Or Travis's lawyer would argue chain of custody issues because a civilian picked it up. I looked at the detective. I saw the skepticism in his eyes. He saw a woman found in the desert with drugs in her system. He didn't see a crime scene. He saw a domestic incident or a mental health episode. My memory for details for patterns kicked in. I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. I needed to know why. The insurance. The custody. If I tipped my hand now, they would cover their tracks. They would destroy whatever evidence was left at the house. They would spin a story before I could even stand up. Mrs. Morrow. I gripped the thin hospital sheet. My hands were clean now, scrubbed of the desert dirt, but I could still feel the phantom rope. I let my voice tremble. It wasn't hard. I don't remember. Vance stopped writing. You don't remember anything. A car. A person. We were at dinner. I lied, tears springing to my eyes. I had wine. Then, lights. Darkness. I woke up on the rocks. It was a dangerous game, but I wasn't the victim anymore. I couldn't afford to be. Vance sighed, closing his notebook. It might be the drugs. Retrograde amnesia. It happens. We'll check the restaurant check cameras. He handed me a card. If anything comes back to you, call me. He left. The curtain swished shut. I stared at the white ceiling. I was alone. Truly alone. My husband had tried to kill me. My sister had watched. I reached for the bedside phone. My fingers shook as I dialed the number I'd memorized from the side of the truck door while Carl was driving me here. It rang twice. Whitaker. Carl's voice answered, wary. It's Dana, I whispered, turning my back to the curtain. From the desert. You okay, kid? Cops talk to you? Yes, I didn't tell them. Silence on the other end, then a grunt of approval. Smart. Sometimes the law moves too slow for the truth. The can, I said, and the video. Keep them safe. Please, don't give them to anyone. Not yet. I got a storage unit in Reno, Carl said. Climate controlled. I keep my old parts there. I'll wrap that can in plastic. It won't see the light of day until you say so. Thank you, Carl. You got a place to go? Can't exactly go home. No, I said. I can't go home. I hung up. My body ached. Every inch of skin felt bruised, but my mind was sharpening, honing itself into a blade. I picked up the phone again, dialed the number for the hospital administration, my workplace. This is Dana Morrow, I said when the clerk answered. My voice was steady now, cold. I need to request immediate personal leave. Something unexpected has come up. Oh, Dana, is everything okay? Is it family? I closed my eyes. I saw the stars, the gas can, the empty desert road. Yes, I said. It's a family emergency. I hung up. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The hospital gown was flimsy, useless armor, but it would have to do. I was dead to them. Fine. If they wanted a ghost, I would be the most terrifying ghost they had ever seen. The rental car smelled like stale cigarettes and pine air freshener, a cloying combination that made my stomach turn. Or maybe that was just the nausea. It had been 3 days, but the drugs were still leaving my system, leaving me shaky and hollowed out. I parked 3 houses down from the split-level ranch on Elm Street. My house. The mortgage was in my name. I had planted the hydrangeas bordering the walkway. I had painted the front door that shade of slate blue because Travis said he didn't care, and Shelley said it was trendy. I pulled my hat lower. The sun was setting over Reno, casting long bruised shadows across the manicured lawns. The garage door opened. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until the leather creaked. Travis's SUV backed out the same black beast that had driven away from me in the desert. It looked clean, shiny. He must have taken it to the car wash the next morning. Washed the dust off the tires. Washed the gilt away with premium wax. But he wasn't driving. Shelley was behind the wheel. My sister wore sunglasses even though the twilight didn't require them. She looked important, like she belonged there. The passenger door opened and Travis stepped out. He looked tired. His shoulders slumped in that way that always made me want to fix things for him. He walked around to the back seat. My breath caught in my throat. He lifted a small boy out of the car seat. Ethan. My son was wearing his dinosaur pajamas, the ones with the T-Rex on the chest. He was 5 days away from his 3rd birthday. He rubbed his eyes sleepy and soft and reached out. Not for Travis. He reached past his father toward the driver's seat. Shelley stepped out. She scooped him up in one fluid motion, settling him on her hip like she'd been doing it her whole life. She smoothed his hair, my son's hair, and whispered something that made him giggle. The sound of that giggle drifted through my open window. It hit me harder than the desert cold. They weren't looking for me. 3 days. I had been gone 3 days, and there were no police cruisers in the driveway. No yellow tape, no frantic search parties sweeping the neighborhood. They had simply replaced me. Travis put his arm around Shelley's waist. It was a casual, practiced gesture. He didn't look like a grieving husband. He looked like a man who had finally exhaled. They walked up the driveway together, a perfect, complete family unit, stepping over the threshold of the home I paid for. The front door closed. The lock clicked. I didn't scream. I didn't drive the car through the living room window, though the impulse burned in my veins like acid. I just sat there watching the lights come on in the kitchen. I watched Shelley's silhouette move past the window, opening the fridge, starting dinner. My life. She was wearing my life like a stolen coat. I put the car in gear and drove away. I didn't look back. If I looked back, I would burn the place down and then I'd be the one in prison while they played victim. I needed leverage. The storage unit was on the south side of town, a sterile row of orange metal doors behind a chain-link fence. I'd rented it 2 years ago, cash only under my maiden name. Working in the ER teaches you things. You see women come in beaten bank accounts, drained with nowhere to go. You learn to keep a go bag. You learn to keep copies of important papers where a controlling partner can't find them. I thought I was being paranoid. Turns out, I was being prophetic. I rolled up the metal door. The air inside was dry and dusty. My emergency box was sitting on the solitary metal shelf exactly where I'd left it. I sat on the concrete floor and opened the plastic file folder. Birth certificates, Ethan's social security card, the deed to the house, and the life insurance policies. I flipped through them. There was the small one through my work standard benefits, but underneath it was another document. Thicker, heavy bond paper, global life assurance, term life, benefit amount $2 million. I stared at the number. $2 million. The date at the bottom was 6 months ago. I turned to the signature page. Dana Morrow. The ink was blue. The loop on the D was wide and sweeping. I don't write my Ds like that. I never have. Travis does. My husband, the man who couldn't remember to pay the electric bill, had forged my signature on a $2 million policy. He hadn't just snapped. He hadn't just fallen in love with my sister and made a terrible, impulsive mistake. This was math. I was worth more dead than I was alive. I leaned back against the cold metal wall. The pieces clicked together with the precision of a scalpel. The anniversary dinner. The insistence that we take his car. The way Shelley had been so helpful lately, picking up Ethan, coming over for dinner, being present. A memory surfaced sharp and sudden. 2 days before the dinner. Shelley had been at the house. We were in the kitchen. She was complaining about her battery dying. She always forgot to charge her phone. "Can I borrow yours, Day? Just need to text a client." I had been cooking, distracted. "Sure, it's on the counter. Passcode is your birthday." Because I loved her. Because she was my little sister and I'd made her birthday my passcode since I was 16. She had taken the phone, walked into the bathroom. I remembered thinking it was odd she stayed in there for 20 minutes. When she came out, she looked flushed, excited. "Thanks, sis. You're a lifesaver." I looked down at the insurance policy in my lap. She hadn't been texting a client. She had been covering their tracks, deleting messages, or maybe installing a tracker, or maybe coordinating the final details with Travis while standing in my guest bathroom. If they planned this, there was a digital trail. People like Shelley and Travis were sloppy. They were arrogant. They thought they were smarter than everyone else because they had gotten away with being the golden children their whole lives. But they forgot one thing. I was the one who cleaned up the messes. I was the one who kept the records. I stood up. I put the policy back in the box along with the deed and Ethan's birth certificate. I took only the cash $3,000 I'd squirreled away and a prepaid burner phone I'd bought at a gas station. I couldn't stay in Reno. If I stayed, I would be found. A dead woman walking around is a problem that needs solving, and next time they wouldn't use a blindfold. Next time they wouldn't miss. I had to vanish. Portland, Oregon is a good place to be a ghost. The rain washes everything clean. The gray skies encourage anonymity. People here mind their own business. They don't look you in the eye. I became Dana Lawson. It wasn't hard. A fake ID is surprisingly easy to get when you know which paramedics to ask, and nursing skills are always in demand. I got a job at a pediatric clinic. Cash under the table, at first, then legit once my paperwork cleared. I lived in a studio apartment that smelled of damp wool and coffee. I bought secondhand furniture. I worked double shifts. And I watched. I created a fake Facebook profile. No photos, just a generic name. I followed them. I watched them mourn me. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. Travis posting photos of empty chairs at holidays. Missing you every day, my love. Shelley commenting, "We'll keep her memory alive for Ethan." They played the grieving survivors perfectly. The police investigation stalled after 6 months. Missing person presumed dead. Without a body, without a crime scene, without the evidence Carl was guarding in his garage, there was nothing to contradict them. 6 months in, I broke my own rule. I sat in an internet cafe wearing a hoodie and logged into a secure encrypted email service. I typed one address, nora.keller82@gmail.com. Nora was our cousin, the black sheep, the only person in the family who had ever called Shelley out for her manipulation. The family had cut her off years ago for causing drama. Subject: the desert gets cold at night. Body: I'm alive. They tried to burn me. Don't tell anyone. I need to know if she still has the old phone. I hit send. My heart hammered against my ribs. If Nora went to the police or worse to my mother, it was over. The reply came 3 minutes later. I knew it. I knew those bastards did something. I have the phone. She sold it to me for $50 when she wanted money for a manicure. I never wiped it. Tell me what to do. Tell me what. I let out a breath I'd been holding for half a year. I had an ally. I had an inside man. And I had time. 3 years. 3 years of waking up alone. 3 years of missing Ethan's first day of preschool. 3 years of zooming in on photos to see if he looked happy, if he looked well-fed, if he looked like he remembered me. He was growing tall. He looked like Travis, but he had my eyes. In the photos, he was always holding Shelley's hand. She dressed him in expensive clothes now. They had bought a new house bigger with a pool. The insurance money must be close, I thought. Or maybe they were just spending on credit anticipating the windfall. I waited. Patience is a muscle. I exercised it every day. I waited for them to get comfortable. I waited for them to get sloppy. I waited for the statute of limitations on missing persons to shift. Then on a Tuesday evening in November, my burner phone buzzed. It was Carl. We spoke once a month, short check-ins. He was my anchor to the reality of that night. "Dana." His voice was rougher than usual. "You seeing this?" "Seeing what?" "The Reno Gazette. Legal notices." I opened my laptop. My fingers flew across the keys. I found the public notices section. There it was. Petition for declaration of death in the matter of Dana Morrow, and below it a marriage license application. Travis Morrow and Shelley Keller. They were making their move. They needed me legally dead so they could collect the $2 million, and they needed me dead so they could marry. They were going to erase me completely. They were going to turn my son's mother into a tragic backstory and use my death to fund their happily ever after. I closed the laptop. The cold rage that had been my companion for 3 years shifted. It wasn't cold anymore. It was white hot. I stood up and walked to the closet. I pulled down the shoebox where I kept the few things I had brought from Nevada. The blindfold. I ran my thumb over the coarse wool. It still smelled faintly of gasoline and fear. I wasn't afraid anymore. I picked up the phone and dialed the number I had carried in my wallet for 3 years. The number of the toughest victims' rights attorney in the Pacific Northwest. Rita Flores. Ms. Flores, I said when the line connected. My name is Dana Morrow. My husband and sister murdered me 3 years ago. I think it's time I returned the favor. Rita Flores didn't offer me coffee. She didn't offer me a tissue. She sat behind a desk that looked like a slab of obsidian, listening to my story with the stillness of a predator waiting for movement. Outside her Portland office window, the rain blurred the city lights. Inside, the only sound was the scratch of her fountain pen on a yellow legal pad. So, she said, finally capping the pen, let me get this straight. You have a jerry can with fingerprints. You have a trucker who keeps evidence like a squirrel keeps nuts. And you have a text history on a phone your cousin Nora is holding hostage. Yes, Rita leaned forward. The office light caught the silver streak in her hair. And you waited 3 years. I was afraid. Good, she said. Fear keeps you alive. Recklessness gets you killed. But now you're tired of being afraid. She opened a folder on her desk. Inside was the printout of the legal notice I'd found. Petition for declaration of death. They're not just declaring you dead, Dana. They're cashing you out. $2 million creates a lot of incentive to make sure a ghost stays a ghost. I gripped the arms of the leather chair. I want to stop them. I want my son back. You want to stop a wedding? Rita shook her head. Small thinking. We don't want to stop the wedding. We want to let them walk right up to the altar. We want them to sign that marriage license. We want them to cash that insurance check. My stomach tightened. Why? Because right now you have attempted murder. Hard to prove without a body, even with your gas can. But if they cash that check, that's federal insurance fraud. If they marry, that's bigamy. That's conspiracy. She slid a retainer agreement across the polished desk. You're going to war on 3 fronts, Dana. Criminal court for the attempt on your life, federal court for the money, and family court for your son. She tapped the paper. This isn't a rescue mission. It's a demolition. Are you ready to pull the trigger? I looked at the signature line. My hand didn't shake this time. I picked up her pen. The ink flowed black and permanent. I'm done hiding, I said. Rita smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was a shark's smile. Good. Then you better start driving. The hearing is in 48 hours. My apartment looked like I hadn't lived there for 3 years. It looked like a waiting room I was finally leaving. I packed 1 bag, jeans, a blazer, something that looked like armor. My nursing scrubs stayed in the hamper. Dana Lawson, the quiet nurse who worked double shifts and never dated, wasn't coming with me. I picked up the photo Nora had sent me last week. Ethan blowing out 5 candles on a cake. Shelley was holding the plate, laughing, her head thrown back. Travis was out of frame, probably taking the picture. Ethan looked fine. That was the knife that twisted in my gut. He didn't look traumatized. He didn't look like a boy missing his mother. He looked happy. If I went back, I would shatter that happiness. I would be the bomb thrown into his living room. Is it better to leave him? The thought seduced me. He's safe. He's loved in a twisted way. Maybe I should just disappear. Let them have the money. Then I remembered the text Nora had described from the backup. He's young enough. He'll forget her. They hadn't just tried to kill me, they had bet on my son's amnesia. They had banked on erasing me from his history so they could play house. I wasn't going back for revenge. I was going back for the truth. Because a life built on a lie is a house built on sand, and eventually it would collapse on top of him. I reached into the shoebox on the top shelf. I took out the wool blindfold. I folded it into a tight square and shoved it into my pocket. I walked out the door and locked it. I dropped the key in the potted plant by the entrance. I wouldn't be coming back. The drive south took 10 hours. The green firs of Oregon gave way to the redwoods of Northern California, and then finally the stark brown scrub of the high desert. The air changed. It got thinner, sharper. Nevada. My body remembered the dryness. My skin prickled. It was 9:00 p.m. when I pulled into the familiar driveway in Reno. Not my house. My mother's house. The porch light was on, a yellow bug light that buzzed with static. The same wreath hung on the door, fake autumn leaves that she put up in September and left until Thanksgiving. I sat in the rental car engine idling. This was the test. Rita had warned me. Expect the worst. Family protects family, but they also protect their own denial. I turned off the engine. The silence of the suburbs pressed in. A dog barked 2 streets over. I walked up the concrete path. I had walked this path 1,000 times. Coming home from school, bringing Ethan over for grandma time. I rang the bell, steps inside, heavy, shuffling steps. The deadbolt slid back. The door opened. June Keller stood there in a bathrobe I bought her for Christmas 4 years ago. Her hair was in rollers. She looked older. Her face was lined with a grief that looked permanent, etched into the corners of her mouth. She looked at me, blinked. She didn't scream. She didn't faint. Her face went slack. All the color drained out of it, leaving her skin the color of old parchment. She grabbed the doorframe, her knuckles white. "Mom," I said. My voice was steady, though my knees felt like water. "Dana." It was a whisper, a ghost story. Ghost. "I'm alive, Mom." She stared at me. For 5 seconds. 10. I waited for the rush of tears. I waited for her to throw open the screen door and pull me into her arms to touch my face to check if I was real. She didn't open the screen. Her eyes darted past me, scanning the dark street, checking for neighbors, checking for witnesses. "Where have you been?" Her voice wasn't filled with joy. It was shrill. "My God, Dana. Where have you been?" "It's a long story. Can I come in?" She hesitated. My own mother hesitated to let me into the house where I grew up. She undid the latch with trembling fingers. I stepped inside. The house smelled the same lavender potpourri and lemon polish. A shrine to a normal life. On the mantel, a large framed photo of Shelley, Travis, and Ethan. No photos of me. "We buried you," June said. She backed away from me, wrapping her robe tighter. "We had a memorial, an empty casket. Travis cried for months. He was destroyed, Dana. Destroyed. Travis tried to kill me." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and ugly. June flinched. "Stop it." "He drugged me. He and Shelley took me to the desert. They tied me up and left me with a gas can." "Liar." The word exploded out of her. She wasn't weak anymore. She was furious. Her face flushed a blotchy red. "How dare you!" she hissed, advancing on me. "You disappear for 3 years, abandon your son, abandon your family, and you come back with this sickness. Jealousy was always your sin, Dana. But this, I have proof, Mom." "I don't want to hear it." She covered her ears like a child. "Shelley has been a mother to that boy. She stepped up when you ran off. She loves him. She loves Travis. They are happy." I looked at the woman who gave birth to me. I saw the terror behind the anger. She knew. Deep down in the dark places she refused to look, she knew what her golden child was capable of. But admitting it would destroy her world. So she decided to destroy me instead. "You're not staying here," June said. Her voice was ice. "You're not ruining their wedding. I won't let you poison this family again." "Poison," I laughed. It was a dry, brittle sound. "They're declaring me dead tomorrow, Mom. For money. Did they offer you a cut, or is your silence free?" Smack. Her hand connected with my cheek. It stung hot and sharp. I didn't flinch. I didn't touch my face. I just looked at her. "Get out," she whispered. "Get out before I call the police." "You do that," I said quietly. "Call them. Tell them your daughter came home." She didn't move toward the phone. She just stood there, shaking, guarding her delusion like a dragon guarding gold. I turned around. My hand touched the doorknob. "I'm going to court, Mom. I have evidence. I have witnesses. And when the truth comes out, you're going to wish you had opened this door and just hugged me. If you hurt Shelley," she said to my back, "I will testify against you. I will tell them you were unstable. I will tell them you ran away." I opened the door. The night air rushed in, cold and clean. "I know you will," I said. "You always chose her." I walked out. I heard the lock click behind me. Double lock. Deadbolt. I sat in the car for a long time watching the house. I touched my cheek where she had slapped me. The last thread was cut. The hope that maybe, just maybe, I had a family to go back to it was gone. I was an orphan now. I put the car in gear. My hands were steady on the wheel. "Okay," I said to the empty car. "No mercy." I drove toward the city lights of Reno where my husband was sleeping next to my sister dreaming of their $2 million. They were going to wake up to a nightmare. The smell of Carl's storage unit was a mixture of old motor oil rubber and the sharp metallic tang of cold concrete. It was a stark contrast to the lavender potpourri of my mother's house, but standing there watching Carl unlock the heavy padlock, I felt safer here than I had in the home where I grew up. The corrugated metal door rattled as he shoved it up. "Kept the humidity controlled," Carl said, his voice echoing in the small space. He didn't look at me. He was focused on a metal cabinet in the corner. "Didn't want rust messing with the prints." He unlocked the cabinet. Inside, sitting on a shelf lined with clean shop towels, was the red plastic jerry can. It was wrapped in heavy-duty clear plastic sealed with duct tape at the top. It looked like a biohazard. In a way it was. That 5-gallon container held the intent to end my life. "I didn't touch it," Carl said, pulling on a pair of latex gloves before lifting it out. "Bagged it that night. Sealed it. Nobody's breathed on it but me." He handed it to Rita. My lawyer took it with both hands, her face grim. She checked the seal, then nodded. "And the video?" she asked. Carl reached into his breast pocket. He pulled out a USB drive. "Original files, plus the backup on a hard drive in my safe at home. Time-stamped. GPS coordinates included." I looked at the old trucker. He was wearing a flannel shirt that had seen better days, and his knuckles were swollen with arthritis. He had no reason to help me. He could have driven past me that night. He could have thrown the can away. "Why?" I asked. "Why keep it for 3 years?" Carl looked at the can, then at me. "I drove a supply truck in Da Nang. Saw a lot of things get covered up because the paper trail got lost. I figured a lady found in the desert with her hands tied. Nobody listens to her unless she brings the weapon with her." He tapped the plastic-wrapped handle. "That's your weapon, Dana. Make it count." We drove straight to the precinct. Detective Vance looked older than I remembered. His hairline had receded, and there were new lines around his eyes. He sat at his desk, staring at the file Rita had slapped down in front of him. "You lied to me," he said. He didn't look angry, just tired. "I survived," I corrected him. "There's a difference." Vance picked up the forensic report Rita had prepared, a preliminary chain of custody for the items we brought. "You know how this looks, right? 3 years later, you walk in with a gas can you claim was at the scene. Defense is going to have a field day. They'll say you bought it at Home Depot yesterday." "Test the fingerprints," Rita said. Her voice was calm, cutting through the noise of the squad room. "If Dana bought it yesterday, it'll have her prints or maybe a clerk's. But if you run it and you find Shelley Keller's prints or Travis Morrow's on a can found 80 miles from their home..." Vance chewed on the end of his pen. He looked at the photo of the blindfold I'd included. "I have the dashcam footage too," I added. 11:47 p.m., Travis's SUV license plate clear as day, speeding back toward Reno, 40 minutes after they dumped me. Vance looked at the USB drive on his desk. He picked it up, turned it over in his fingers. "This changes things," he admitted. "With the insurance policy you found? Yeah. That's motive. That's means. That's opportunity." He stood up, grabbing his jacket. "I can get warrants. It'll take me 24 hours to get a judge to sign off on a cold case, but this is solid. But..." He paused at the door. "The DA hates circumstantial cases. If we had them talking about it, texting, emailing, that would seal it." "Get the warrants," Rita said. "We're working on the rest." We walked out into the bright Reno sunlight. It felt exposing. Every car that passed looked like Travis's. Every woman with blonde hair looked like Shelley. "I need to go somewhere," I told Rita. "We need to go to your cousin's," she argued. "We need that phone." "I know, but I have one stop first. Please." Rita looked at me, assessing. She checked her watch. "You have 30 minutes. Don't let them see you." I parked the rental car a block away from the park on Elm Street. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Shelley's schedule was clockwork, I knew, because it used to be my schedule. Tuesday was park day. I pulled my cap down and walked to the edge of the playground, keeping a large oak tree between me and the swings. And there they were. The air left my lungs. Ethan was on the slide. He was wearing a red jacket I didn't recognize. He looked taller. His legs were longer, losing the toddler chubbiness I remembered holding. He climbed the ladder with confidence, shouting something I couldn't hear. Shelley was sitting on a bench nearby. She wasn't on her phone. She was watching him, smiling. She had a juice box ready in her hand. Travis stood behind her, one hand resting on her shoulder. He looked normal. He was laughing at something Shelley said. They looked like a family. A happy, perfect, beautiful family. Ethan slid down. He hit the wood chips at the bottom a little too fast and tumbled forward. He scraped his hands. My body moved before my brain could stop it. I took a step forward, my instinct to run to him, to pick him up, to kiss the palms of his hands. But I wasn't the one he looked for. He scrambled up, face crumpling, and ran, past the slide, past the other kids. "Mommy." He ran straight to Shelley. She scooped him up. She checked his hands blue on them and pulled him into a hug. He buried his face in her neck, the same neck she used to spray with my perfume when she borrowed it. "It's okay, baby," I heard her voice carry on the wind. "Mommy's got you." I gripped the rough bark of the oak tree until my fingernails threatened to snap. Mommy. He didn't know me. To him, I was a face in a photograph on the mantel, if they even kept my picture up. Shelley was the one who bandaged his knees. Shelley was the one who tucked him in. If I took him back, I would be the stranger kidnapping him from the only mother he remembered. The realization made me nauseous. I had thought about justice. I had thought about punishment. I hadn't thought about the damage. Travis bent down and kissed the top of Shelley's head. Then he kissed Ethan's hair. They had stolen everything, and they had done it so completely that restoring the truth would look like a crime to my own son. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Rita, time's up." I took one last look at the boy in the red jacket. "I'm coming for you, Ethan," I whispered. "Even if you hate me for it." I turned and walked back to the car. I didn't cry. I was done crying. Crying was for victims. I was a mother, and mothers do the hard things. Nora lived in a bungalow on the north side of town, the part where the lawns were patchy and the fences leaned. She met us at the door holding a cigarette she hadn't lit. "You look like hell, Dana," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled of tobacco and loyalty. "God, it's good to see you." We sat in her living room. The shades were drawn. "I kept it charged," Nora said, opening a drawer in her coffee table. She pulled out a rose gold iPhone with a cracked screen. "Shelley sold it to me 2 years ago when she wanted cash for a spa day. Travis had cut off her credit cards for a week trouble in paradise even back then." Rita put on gloves. "Did you ever guess the passcode?" "Didn't have to." Nora smirked. "Shelley is lazy. It's 123456. Rita plugged the phone into her laptop. A forensic extraction program, something expensive and terrifyingly fast, started running. "She didn't wipe it?" I asked. "She deleted the messages," Nora said. "I checked. The inbox was empty when I got it." My stomach dropped. "Then it's useless." "No," Rita said, her eyes glued to the screen. "Deletion just marks the space as available. Unless she overwrote it, the data is still there. And more importantly," she pointed to the screen, "iCloud backup was on. She hadn't signed out." We waited. The progress bar crawled across the screen. 40%. 60%. "If they planned this," Rita murmured, "they talked about it. Travis is too anxious to do it without reassurance. Shelley is too controlling not to give instructions." Ding. Extraction complete. Rita opened the text log. She filtered by date 3 years ago, November, the week of the anniversary. She scrolled, stopped. Her face went pale. Then a slow, predatory smile spread across her lips. "Read this," she said, turning the laptop toward me. I leaned in. The text was from Shelley to Travis, dated 2 days before the kidnapping. Shelley spot confirmed. "Mile marker 82, no cell service. Bring the jerry can. I don't want to use a knife, too messy." Travis. "Are you sure?" "What if someone finds her?" "Shelley? Nobody goes out there. By morning there won't be anything left to find." I stared at the words. Black pixels on a white screen. They weren't just plotting a crime, they were discussing my incineration like they were planning a grocery list. "We got them," Nora whispered. "We have conspiracy." Rita corrected, closing the laptop. We have premeditation. We have the death penalty on the table if the DA wants to push it. She looked at me. Detective Vance is getting the warrants. We're going to arrest them tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, I repeated. They're filing the death declaration tomorrow at 9 a.m., Rita said. They'll walk into the courthouse thinking they're about to be rich. Instead, they're going to walk out in handcuffs. It was the victory I wanted. It was the moment I had dreamed of in my empty apartment in Portland. But as I sat there looking at the cracked phone that held my sister's malice, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt the weight of the red jacket on the playground. I felt the ghost of Ethan's scrape. Tomorrow, I would blow up their world. Do it, I said. Burn them down. The coffee in my travel mug had gone cold an hour ago. I didn't care. I sat low in the driver's seat of the rental parked 2 blocks down from the house that used to be my sanctuary. It was 6:58 a.m. The suburbs of Reno were still gray and quiet. A single sprinkler hissed on a lawn across the street. Here we go, Rita said from the passenger seat. She wasn't looking at the house. She was watching the digital clock on the dashboard. At 7 o'clock a.m. exactly 3 unmarked sedans turned the corner in unison. No sirens, no screaming tires, just a silent, predatory glide to the curb. Detective Vance stepped out of the lead car. He wore a windbreaker that said police in bold yellow letters. 4 uniformed officers flanked him. They moved up the driveway. I stopped breathing. My hand found the door handle, squeezing it until my palm ached. Knock, knock, knock. The sound carried through the crisp morning air. The front door opened. Travis stood there in his bathrobe holding a mug. Even from this distance, I saw the moment his world ended. His shoulders collapsed. The mug fell from his hand, shattering on the porch. He didn't run. He didn't argue. He just slumped against the doorframe, a man whose luck had finally run dry. Then came the scream. Get your hands off me! Shelley. She was dragged out a moment later, still wearing her silk pajamas. She wasn't slumping. She was fighting, kicking, thrashing against the officer who held her arm. This is a mistake, her voice shrilled, piercing the neighborhood silence. Call my lawyer, you can't do this. Then the front door opened again. A social worker stepped out. She was carrying a child wrapped in a blanket. Ethan. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. He's safe. He's safe. But he wasn't safe. He was terrified. Mommy! He wailed, reaching his small arms toward the police car where they were shoving Shelley into the back seat. Mommy, Shelley! The sound of his voice calling her name, begging for her comfort, tore through me. I had prayed for this moment. I had visualized their arrest 1,000 times, but I hadn't visualized my son's face twisted in panic, reaching for the woman who tried to murder his mother. Shelley stopped fighting. She looked toward the street. Her eyes locked onto my rental car. I wasn't hiding anymore. I sat up straight. I let her see me. I let her see the sister she thought she had incinerated 3 years ago. Shelley's face went slack. The rage vanished, replaced by a shock so profound it looked like physical pain. She stared at me through the windshield. Then slowly her expression shifted. Her lips pulled back in a snarl. She mouthed 2 words at me before the officer pushed her head down and forced her into the cruiser. You're dead. The police cars pulled away. The social worker buckled Ethan into her sedan. He's going to foster care, I whispered. Strangers. Temporary, Rita said, her voice soft but firm. Emergency custody hearing is in 48 hours. We get him back, Dana, but first we bury them. The conference room at the district attorney's office smelled of floor wax and stale ambition. The DAA, sharp-eyed woman named Harris, sat at the head of the table. On the screen, the forensic tech had projected the text messages extracted from Shelley's old phone. This is the smoking gun, Rita said, tapping the table. The text thread was dated 3 days before my abduction. Shelley Desert spot confirmed. Mile marker 82. No cell coverage. Travis. I can't do the knife. I can't look at her when it happens. Shelley, fine. Gasoline is cleaner. Just pour and light. We drive away. By morning, there's nothing but ash. The room was silent. Even the seasoned detectives looked uncomfortable. Reading about murder is one thing. Reading the logistics of burning a human being alive is another. And the motive? Rita prompted. The text scrolled down. Travis. What about the boy? He asks for her every night. Shelley? He's 2. Travis. He has the attention span of a goldfish. Give it 6 months. He'll forget she ever existed. I stared at those words. He'll forget she ever existed. That was the real crime. The fire was just the method. The murder was aimed at my motherhood. They hadn't just wanted my life insurance. They wanted to erase my legacy. They wanted to steal my son's memory of me. We have them, D.A. Harris said, closing the folder. Attempted murder, conspiracy, insurance fraud. I'm filing the charges today. We'll ask for no bail. She looked at me. Mrs. Morrow, with this evidence, they'll likely plead out. You might not even have to testify. It felt like a win. It felt like the end of the movie where the music swells and the credits roll. But the knot in my stomach wouldn't loosen. Shelley's face in the window. That wasn't the face of someone who was about to plead guilty. That was the face of someone who had a backup plan. The courthouse steps were a sea of microphones. The story had leaked, the dead wife returning to stop her husband's wedding on the day of her own death declaration. The media ate it up. I stood next to Rita. I wore a navy blazer and simple slacks. I looked like a pediatric nurse. I looked sane. Dana Morrow has been the victim of a calculated, brutal conspiracy, Rita told the cameras. Her voice was made for sound bites. For 3 years she has lived in hiding, fearing for her life, waiting for the evidence that would bring her attackers to justice. Today, that justice begins. Flashes popped. Reporters shouted questions. Mrs. Morrow, how did you survive? Did you see your husband arrested? I stepped forward. I had rehearsed this. Short, dignified, focused on Ethan. I am here for one reason, I said into the thicket of microphones. To get my son back. I survived for him, and I will fight for him. Mrs. Morrow, a reporter in the back raised her hand. What do you say to the defense's claim that this is all a hoax? I stopped. Excuse me. The reporter checked her phone. Shelley Keller's attorney just released a statement. He claims you staged your own disappearance 3 years ago due to a mental health crisis. He says you planted the evidence yourself. The air seemed to leave the plaza. He claims, the reporter continued looking up at me, that you abandoned your family to run off with a lover, and now that the money is gone, you've come back to extort them. My hands shook. I clasped them behind my back. That's a lie, I said. But my voice sounded thin, defensive. They have a witness, another reporter shouted. A family member prepared to testify to your history of instability. Rita grabbed my arm. No more questions. She pulled me back toward the glass doors of the courthouse. The cameras kept flashing, but the energy had changed. They weren't looking at a survivor anymore. They were looking at a headline. Gone girl or victim. They didn't care which as long as it bled. Rita's office was a sanctuary of silence after the noise outside. I paced the length of the Persian rug. They can't prove that, I said. We have the texts. We have the gas can. They don't have to prove it, Rita said. She was pouring water, her hand steady. They just have to create reasonable doubt. If one juror believes you might be crazy, they walk. Who is the witness? I demanded. Who would lie for them? Rita looked at me. She didn't want to say it. Rita. It's June, she said quietly. I stopped pacing. The room tilted. My mother. The defense just filed their witness list for the bail hearing. June Keller. She's prepared to testify that you suffered from postpartum depression. That you made threats to disappear before the incident. That you were jealous of Shelley's relationship with your husband. I sank into the chair. My mother. I remembered the look on her face last night. The terror. The denial. She couldn't accept that her golden child was a monster. So she had rewritten reality. In her version of the story, I was the villain. I was the sick one. I was the one hurting the family. She's doing it to save Shelley, I whispered. She's sacrificing me to save her. Yes, Rita said. She is. She sat across from me. This changes the strategy, Dana. We can't just rely on the forensic evidence anymore. If your mother gets on that stand and paints you as unstable, the jury might dismiss the texts as fantasy roleplay or out of context. That's the narrative they'll spin. So what do? We have to break her, Rita said. Her voice was hard, devoid of sentiment. "We have to cross-examine your mother and expose her favoritism. We have to show the jury that she would let one daughter die to protect the other." I looked out the window at the rain starting to streak the glass. I had come back to fight monsters. I didn't know I would have to fight the woman who gave birth to me. "She chose her side," I said. The words tasted like ash. "Do it." Rita nodded and reached for the phone. The victory of the morning was gone. The handcuffs, the text messages, the press conference, it was all just the opening act. The real war hadn't even started. And the enemy wasn't just in a jail cell, she was sitting in my childhood living room rehearsing her lines. "They're going to put your entire life on that stand and set it on fire. Are you ready?" Rita's question hung in the stale, late-night air of her office. We were surrounded by binders, each one a chapter of my life weaponized. She tapped a thick one labeled Medical History. "This prescription for an antidepressant after Ethan was born, they won't call it postpartum support. They'll call it a history of mental instability." When I walked to the witness stand, a hush fell over the courtroom. I could feel every eye on me. Shelley's filled with a venomous disbelief. Travis's empty and defeated. My mother's terrified. I didn't look at any of them. I looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people who held my future and my son's in their hands. "State your name for the record," the clerk said. "Dana Morrow." My voice was clear. It didn't shake. Sterling Shelley's lawyer approached the stand like a wolf circling its prey. He started with the expected attacks. "Mrs. Morrow, you disappeared for 3 years," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You abandoned your son, did you not?" "No," I said calmly. "I survived for 3 years, so I could come back for my son. You expect this jury to believe that your own mother, the woman who raised you, testified that you were unstable, that you were prone to fits of jealousy." I finally allowed my gaze to shift. I looked directly at my mother sitting in the front row. For the first time she met my eyes. "My mother loves my sister," I said, my voice softening. "She has spent her entire life protecting her favorite child from consequences. She's doing it now. I'm not angry with her for that." I turned back to the jury. "I understand it. She is afraid of the truth, because the truth is ugly." Sterling looked momentarily thrown off balance. This wasn't the hysterical victim he was prepared for. "And what is this truth you speak of?" he sneered. I took a breath. This was it. This was for Ethan. "The truth is that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most can hurt you in ways a stranger never could. The truth is that sharing blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. And the truth," my voice caught just for a second, "is that the hardest thing I have ever done was stay away from my son day after day for 1,095 days so that I could gather the strength and the evidence to fight my way back to him safely." I looked past Sterling, past the judge, and into the camera that was recording the official transcript. I didn't run away. I was thrown away, and I walked back. Every single step. Scene 2. The prosecutor Ellis stood up for his redirect. He didn't ask me a question. "Your Honor," he said, "the prosecution would like to play Exhibit C, the dashcam footage." The lights in the courtroom dimmed. On the large screen, the grainy black and white video began to play. The lonely stretch of Nevada highway. The timestamp in the corner 11:47 p.m. Then headlights. A black SUV, Travis's SUV, flew past the camera, a dark blur heading back toward the city. The license plate was crystal clear. Ellis let the footage play for a full minute in silence. The only sound was the hum of the projector. He then called his final witness, Carl Whitaker. Carl walked to the stand with a slow, steady gait. He looked out of place in a borrowed suit, but his voice was firm. He described finding me. The ropes, the blindfold, the reek of gasoline. "I'm no detective," Carl said, looking at the jury. "I'm just a guy who drives a truck. But you find a woman tied up in the desert next to a can of gasoline. You don't need a badge to know what that means." As Carl spoke, a commotion started at the defense table. It was Shelley. She was whispering frantically to Sterling, shaking her head. Then she turned on Travis. "This is your fault," she hissed, her voice a raw, carrying whisper. "You were supposed to check for other cars." "My fault," Travis shot back, his voice cracking. "You were the one who bought the gasoline. You said you'd wear gloves. The prints were yours." "I did wear gloves." "Obviously not, you stupid." "Travis, shut up," Sterling commanded, but it was too late. The dam had broken. "It was her idea," Travis shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Shelley, his face slick with sweat. "She wanted the money. She wanted the house. She wanted my son. I just wanted what she had." Shelley shrieked, her mask of composure disintegrating completely. She stood up, knocking her chair over, and pointed at me. "She had everything. The perfect life. The baby. It should have been mine." The judge hammered his gavel. Officers rushed forward. The jury stared, their faces a mixture of shock and disgust. They didn't need a closing argument. My husband and my sister had just delivered the most damning confession imaginable. Scene 3. The jury was out for 45 minutes. When they filed back in, their faces were grim. Resolved. Not one of them looked at the defense table. The foreman stood. "On the charge of attempted murder, we the jury find the defendant Shelley Keller guilty." A choked sob escaped my mother's lips. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant Shelley Keller guilty." Shelley didn't react. She stared straight ahead, a statue of rage. "On the charge of insurance fraud, we find the defendant Shelley Keller guilty." The foreman cleared his throat and did the same for Travis. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The sentences came down an hour later. Because of the extreme cruelty and premeditation, Shelley was given 20 to 30 years. Travis, for his cooperation at the end, received 15 to 25. Reporters scrambled from the room. I didn't move. I just watched them lead my sister away in handcuffs. The woman who shared my bedroom for 16 years. The woman who held my son in her arms as a baby. Gone. Rita touched my arm. "It's over, Dana. Social Services has already recommended immediate reunification with Ethan. The custody hearing next week is just a formality." It was over. I had won. But as I stood up, I saw my mother sitting alone in the back row, her face ashen. For the first time, she looked her age. She looked broken. Scene 4. I found her in the hallway outside the courtroom. She was leaning against the wall, staring at the marble floor. She looked up as I approached. Her eyes were red-rimmed and empty. "Dana," she whispered. I didn't know. I didn't believe they would actually—" "Stop," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through her excuses. "You knew. You've always known what Shelley was capable of. You just chose not to see it." "I'm your mother," she pleaded, reaching a trembling hand toward me. I didn't move back, but I didn't move forward either. "And I needed you. I needed my mother. On that stand in this hallway 3 years ago. And you chose her. Every single time." A long silence stretched between us, filled with the ghosts of a lifetime of choices. "I forgive you, Mom," I said, and the words surprised me as much as they did her. "I forgive you because holding on to this anger won't help Ethan heal. It won't help me heal. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." I took a breath. "I don't need you anymore." I turned and walked away down the long, empty corridor. I didn't look back to see if she was watching. For the first time in my life, her approval didn't matter. Scene 5. The visitation room at the foster care agency was painted a cheerful, determined yellow. It was filled with soft carpets and colorful toys. A social worker led him in. He was so small. He wore jeans and a t-shirt with a dinosaur on it. He looked at me with serious, curious eyes. My eyes. There was no recognition. "Hi," I said softly, my heart a frantic bird in my chest. I knelt down so I was at his level. "My name is Dana. I'm your mom. Your first mom." Ethan clutched a small plastic T-Rex in his hand. He looked from me to the social worker, then back to me. "Mommy Shelley said my first mom went away because she didn't love me," he said. His voice was a tiny perfect bell. The words shattered me and put me back together all at once. "That's the biggest lie anyone ever told, sweetie." I said, my voice thick. "I have always loved you. I went away so I could find my way back to you." He considered this with the profound gravity of a 5-year-old. He looked down at the toy in his hand, then held it out to me. "This one is Stegosaurus. He has plates on his back." I almost laughed. I almost sobbed. I took the dinosaur from his small hand. It felt like treasure. "I love dinosaurs," I said. He looked at me, a tiny flicker of a smile at the corner of his mouth. "Me too." We sat on the soft carpet, the yellow walls around us like a new sunrise. He showed me his dinosaurs. He told me their names. It would take time, a long time. There were scars I couldn't see and a story I would have to tell him someday. But not today. Today was about dinosaurs. It was about a little boy and his mother sitting on a floor starting over. I had my son. I had my life. And I had time. We finally had time. She slid another binder forward. Financials. "This secret bank account with $3,000, not an emergency fund. It's your runaway money. Proof you planned to abandon your family." "I was a nurse," I said, my voice low. "I saw what happened to women who had no escape route. And they'll say you were a paranoid wife looking for an exit." Rita leaned back, her face etched with exhaustion. "Sterling's strategy is simple. He can't disprove the evidence, so he's going to destroy the witness. You. Every bad day, every argument with Travis, every tearful phone call to your mother, it's all ammunition now." I stood up and walked to the window. The city lights of Portland were a blur of rain and neon. To win, I had to let them do it. I had to sit in that courtroom and listen to them twist my exhaustion into madness, my caution into conspiracy. I had to let them flay me in public piece by piece just for the chance to get my son back. I turned from the window. Let them try. They buried the wrong woman. The courtroom felt like a pressure cooker. Travis sat at the defense table looking like a ghost in an expensive suit. Shelley sat beside him, but there was a foot of cold air between them. They hadn't looked at each other once. Shelley took the stand first. Her lawyer, a man named Sterling with a politician's smile, handled her like she was made of glass. She cried. She dabbed her eyes. She painted a picture of a sister she loved, a brother-in-law she adored, and a situation that spun tragically out of control. "It was Travis's idea," she sobbed, not looking at him. "The insurance, the money. He was in so much debt. I loved him. I would have done anything for him. I drove the car, yes. But I didn't know what he was planning. I thought we were just scaring her." I watched Travis. His face went slack. The color drained from his cheeks. This was it. The moment the rats started eating each other. When it was Travis's turn, he didn't even wait for the plea deal. Sterling's cross-examination had barely begun when Travis snapped. "She's lying," he shouted, jumping to his feet. His own lawyer tried to pull him down. "She planned the whole thing. She said Dana was in the way, that we deserved to be happy. She bought the gasoline." "Liar!" Shelley screamed from the defense table. Her mask of the gentle victim shattered. "You begged me. You said you wished she would just die every day. You said the insurance money would solve everything." The judge hammered his gavel, his shouts for order lost in the chaos. Reporters scribbled furiously. I watched them, my husband and my sister, a duet of betrayal. This wasn't justice. It was a dogfight. And it wasn't the victory I had imagined. It was just pathetic. The foundation of my life hadn't just cracked. It had been a sewer all along. When the room finally quieted, Sterling looked exhausted, but resolute. He had one card left to play. "Your Honor," he said, his voice ringing with false solemnity. "The defense calls June Keller." My mother walked to the stand like a woman walking to her own execution. She wore a gray, high-collared dress and she clutched a tissue in her hand. She refused to look at me. Sterling approached her gently. "Mrs. Keller, this must be a nightmare for you." "It is," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I want to ask you about your daughter, Dana. In the months before she disappeared, how was she?" June stared at her hands, which were folded in her lap. "She was struggling. The baby. Ethan. It was a lot for her. She was distant, distracted. Did she seem detached from her son?" I saw my mother's shoulders tense. This was the moment, the choice. "Travis told me she seemed overwhelmed, June said carefully. He said sometimes she wouldn't even pick Ethan up when he cried. A lie. A vicious, calculated lie. I had held my son so much my back ached for a year straight. Did she ever express violent thoughts? Sterling pressed. Or a desire to harm herself, or to run away? June hesitated. She looked up, her eyes pleading with some invisible god for an escape. There was none. She had made her choice the night she slapped me. She once said she wanted to disappear, June said, her voice cracking. I thought she was just tired, but she said she wanted to get in her car and just be gone. Now, I wonder. A murmur went through the jury box. I saw them look at me, not with sympathy, but with a new clinical curiosity. The seed of doubt had been planted. Sterling walked closer to the witness stand. Mrs. Keller, in your heart as her mother, do you believe it's possible Dana staged this entire event to hurt the people who loved her? My mother started to cry. Real gut-wrenching sobs. I don't know what to believe anymore, she wept. But she was always so jealous of Shelley. Always. It broke my heart. It was a masterclass in character assassination. And my own mother was the star witness. She had taken my pain, my exhaustion as a new mother, and twisted it into a portrait of a monster. The judge called for a recess. I sat frozen at the table. Rita put a hand on my arm, but I couldn't feel it. I could only feel the cold. The absolute bottomless cold of being utterly alone. The courthouse bathroom was an echo chamber of humming fluorescent lights and dripping faucets. I gripped the edge of the porcelain sink, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back was a stranger. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. The jury believed her. I saw it in their faces. They saw a grieving mother forced to choose between her two daughters. They didn't see the lie. The door creaked open. High heels clicked on the tile. Don't let her win. It was Nora. She stood by the door, her arms crossed. She already has. I said, my voice rough. She just told 12 strangers that I'm crazy. It's my word against my mother's. No, it's not, Nora said, walking toward me. She stopped at the next sink. It's your mother's words against a roll of plastic and some oil from Shelley's fingertips. I looked up. What? The jury is emotional right now, Nora said. They're reacting to the theater of a crying mother, but they haven't heard the science yet. They haven't seen the forensic report from the gas can. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. Your mother can lie about what you said in the kitchen. She can lie about your feelings, but she can't lie about Shelley's fingerprints being all over the handle of that can. I stared at her in the mirror. She was right. The story wasn't over. The emotional bomb had gone off, but the physical evidence was still waiting. Nora pulled a lipstick from her purse and reapplied it with a steady hand. Fingerprints don't lie, Dana, she said, snapping the tube shut. Mothers do. A sliver of light cut through the despair. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The trial wasn't over. The most important witness hadn't even taken the stand yet. Tomorrow, the lab tech would testify. Tomorrow, the jury would hear about the fingerprints. Everything depended on it. The courtroom was different the next morning. The air of dramatic tragedy was gone, replaced by a tense clinical silence. The jury looked tired. They had been swayed by my mother's tears yesterday. Today they looked like they wanted facts, not feelings. The prosecution calls Dr. Eris Thorne, Ellis announced. The forensic expert walked to the stand with the quiet confidence of a man who deals in absolutes. He opened a folder and the entire room seemed to lean forward. Dr. Thorne, Ellis began, you analyzed the contents of Exhibit A, the gasoline container. What did you find? We recovered multiple latent fingerprints. Dr. Thorne said, his voice clear and precise. Despite the item's age, its preservation was excellent. I glanced at Carl sitting in the back row. He gave a single slow nod. And to whom did these fingerprints belong? Dr. Thorne adjusted his glasses. 4 prints on the main carrying handle and 2 on the spout cap were a definitive match to the defendant, Shelley Keller. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Shelley, who had been looking serene and victimized, stiffened. Her lawyer Sterling started scribbling furiously on a legal pad. And were there any other prints? Ellis asked. Yes, 2 partial prints on the base of the container were a match to the defendant, Travis Morrow. Sterling shot to his feet. Objection! The defendants lived with the alleged victim. Their prints could be on any number of household items. Is a 5-gallon gasoline can a typical household item, Mr. Sterling? The judge asked, his voice dripping with acid. Overruled. Continue. Ellis walked toward the jury box. Dr. Thorne, just to be perfectly clear for the jury, did you find any fingerprints belonging to my client Dana Morrow anywhere on that can? No, Dr. Thorne said. Her prints were not present. The science landed in the room with the force of a physical blow. You could see the shift in the jurors' eyes. My mother's story was an emotional appeal. This was a fact, cold and immutable. Shelley's hands had been on the weapon. Travis's hands had been on the weapon. Mine had not. Sterling's cross-examination was a desperate flurry of technical questions about chain of custody and print degradation, but the damage was done. The lie had been exposed. For the first time since the trial began, I felt the ground solidify beneath my feet. That night, the victory felt hollow. I sat alone in my hotel room. The city of Reno hummed outside my window, indifferent. I had the evidence. I had the fingerprints. Justice was coming. Shelley and Travis were going to prison. I was going to win. So why did it feel like I had already lost everything that mattered? I spread the crime scene photos out on the cheap motel bedspread. The picture of the jerry can. The shot of the ropes lying in the dust. The image of the wool blindfold. I had won the trial, but what was the prize? A son who called another woman Mommy. A mother who had publicly disowned me to protect a monster. A family name that was now synonymous with scandal and attempted murder. I would get Ethan back. The court would give me custody. But I wouldn't get back the little boy who knew me. I would be raising a child traumatized by the knowledge that his father, his aunt, and his grandmother had conspired to erase his mother. Revenge. I had thought that's what I wanted. I had pictured this moment, imagined the satisfaction of watching Shelley's world burn. But looking at the photos, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt a profound, aching emptiness. The point wasn't to punish them. The punishment wouldn't fix what was broken in me or in my son. The point was the truth. The real victory wasn't putting them in jail. It was ensuring that someday, when Ethan was old enough to ask the hard questions, he would read the court transcripts and know that I didn't abandon him. He would know that I fought my way back through hell for him. He had to know I was a survivor, not a ghost. My want for revenge had been a wildfire burning hot and fast. But my need for my son to know my truth was deeper. It was the bedrock beneath the ash. And suddenly, I knew what I had to do. The trial wasn't over. Not yet. Rita met me for coffee at a diner before court the next morning. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. Ellis is going to deliver his closing argument today, she said, stirring her black coffee. He's going to hammer them on the forensics. We've won Dana. No, I said. Not yet. I want to testify. Rita stopped stirring. She put her spoon down with a soft clink. Why, Dana, you don't have to. It's a huge risk. Sterling will tear you apart on the stand. He'll use everything your mother said. I know. I looked her in the eye. This isn't for the jury anymore. This is for Ethan. He's 5 years old. He won't understand. He will someday. He'll be a teenager and he'll Google our names. He'll find the news articles, the court records. I can't let the last word be my mother's lies or Shelley's performance. The record has to show that I sat on that stand and told my own story, not as the victim they tried to create, as me. Rita studied my face for a long time. She was looking for cracks for hesitation. She didn't find any. I'm done being the woman who disappears, I told her. She picked up her spoon again. A slow, determined smile spread across her face. Okay, she said. Then let's give them a show. There was a knock on my hotel room door that night. It was Carl. He stood in the hallway holding his worn baseball cap in his hands, looking deeply uncomfortable. Sorry to bother you so late, he mumbled. Rita told me you were testifying tomorrow, just wanted to see if you were okay. Come in, I said. He stepped inside, looking around the sterile room. You holding up? I am now. I walked over to the dresser and picked up the evidence bag that held the blindfold. I had asked for it back from the DA's office. You kept it? Carl asked, his eyes wide. It reminds me what I survived, I said. This is what they used to try and blind me, to make me helpless in the dark. But it didn't work. I held it in my hands. The coarse wool felt different now. It wasn't a symbol of my victimhood anymore. It was a symbol of my resilience. They had thrown me into the darkness, and in that darkness I had found my way out. I had found him. I had found my voice. Tomorrow, I said, looking at Carl, I'm not going to talk about what they did to me. I'm going to tell the jury who I am. Carl nodded slowly. A look of profound respect settled on his weathered face. You give 'em hell, Dana. I will, I promised. He left, and I stood by the window holding the blindfold. The night was dark, but for the first time in 3 years I wasn't afraid of it. Tomorrow I was taking back the light. The visitation room at Riverside Family Services smelled like carpet cleaner and crayons. Yellow walls, primary colored furniture, a basket of toys that had been touched by 1,000 small, uncertain hands. I sat in a chair designed for someone half my size waiting. The door opened. Patricia, the social worker, led in a small boy wearing a dinosaur t-shirt green with a T-Rex that said "Roarsome" in blocky letters. His sneakers lit up when he walked. Blue, then red, then blue again. He looked at me with serious eyes. My eyes. There was no recognition in them. Hi, I said softly. My voice came out wrong, too careful, too hopeful. I tried again. Hi, Ethan. I'm your mom. Your first mom. He didn't move. Just stood there assessing me the way children do when they're deciding if an adult can be trusted. I had seen this look on patients' kids in the ER, the ones who'd learned that grown-ups don't always tell the truth. Mommy Shelley said my first mom went away because she didn't love me. The words hit like a physical blow, but I'd had 3 years to prepare for this moment. 3 years of imagining what lies they'd told him. That wasn't true, sweetie. I kept my voice steady. I always loved you. Every single day. I went away to find my way back to you. He considered this. His brow furrowed a gesture I recognized. I used to make that same face when I was thinking. That doesn't make sense, he said finally. I know. I almost laughed. It's a long story. Maybe someday when you're older I can explain it better. But the short version is some bad things happened and I had to go somewhere safe. And I've been trying to come back to you ever since. Like a quest. Like a quest. Exactly. Something shifted in his face. Not trust, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it. He walked over to the toy basket, rummaged through it with practiced hands, and pulled out a plastic dinosaur. Green, 4 inches tall, tiny arms, massive jaw, a T-Rex. He walked back to me and held it out. This one is my favorite. I took it from him like it was made of glass. Yeah. Why this one? Because T-Rex mommies protect their babies. He said it like it was obvious, like everyone knew this. The other dinosaurs think T-Rex is scary, because of the teeth and the roaring and stuff, but the babies know she's not scary. She's just protecting them. My throat tightened. Did you learn that somewhere? I read books. At the library. He sat down on the carpet cross-legged and looked up at me expectantly. Mommy Shelley said dinosaurs are just bones, that they don't matter because they're all dead. But I think they matter. I think they matter a lot. I lowered myself to the carpet beside him. My knees protested, but I didn't care. I think they matter too, I said. He took the T-Rex back and walked it across his palm. There should be a book about a T-Rex who lost her baby. And she looked everywhere, even in scary places, even when everyone said her baby was gone forever. And then she found him. Is there a book like that? I don't know. I haven't found one yet. He looked at me, really looked for the first time. Maybe you could help me look. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Okay. He handed me a Triceratops. You can be this one. She's friends with the T-Rex. They go on adventures together. We sat there on the floor, surrounded by primary colors and soft carpet and the weight of everything we'd lost, and we played dinosaurs. He showed me how Triceratops was actually braver than she looked. He explained that T-Rex couldn't hug her babies because of her arms, so she protected them instead. He told me about pterodactyls, which weren't technically dinosaurs, and about how some scientists think birds are dinosaurs that survived. So dinosaurs didn't really go extinct, he said. They just changed. That's pretty smart, I said. I know. And then, in the way children do, he said something that stopped my heart. I used to dream about you. I went very still. You did before, when I was little. He was focused on the dinosaurs, arranging them in a line. I told my friend Marcus at the park once. He asked where my mommy was, and I said Mommy Shelley. But then I said my first mommy went away because she didn't love me. That's what Mommy Shelley told me. He looked up, those serious eyes. But I told Marcus I didn't think that was true, because sometimes I dreamed about you. And in my dreams... He paused like he was remembering something from very far away. In my dreams, you were always trying to find me. I couldn't breathe. 3 years. 3 years of silence, and somehow in some way, my son had known, in the place where dreams come from something remembered. I whispered. I was always trying to find you. He nodded like this made perfect sense, like the dreams had been real all along. I thought so. At the end of the hour, Patricia came back. Time to go. Ethan stood up, brushed imaginary dirt off his light-up sneakers. Then he turned back to me. Are you going to come back? Yes, no hesitation. Every time they let me, I'll always come back. He considered this. Processing. Can you bring dinosaur books Mommy Shelley never wanted to read about dinosaurs? I'll bring as many as I can carry. A small smile. The first one. Okay, bye first, Mom. Bye, Ethan. I watched him leave with Patricia. His sneakers lit up with every step blue, then red, then blue again. In my pocket, the folded blindfold, the silk that Shelley had used to try to erase me from the world. Someday I'd tell him about that too. About the desert and the darkness and how his T-Rex mommy walked through places scarier than any dinosaur graveyard to find her way back to him. But not today. Today was about dinosaurs. About a little boy who dreamed of me even when they told him to forget. About a T-Rex who couldn't hug her baby, so she learned to protect him instead. Some people say blood is thicker than water. They use it to keep you quiet, to make you accept treatment you'd never take from a stranger. But here's what I learned in that desert. The full saying, the one they never tell you, goes like this. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the bonds we choose, the promises we make, are stronger than the family we're born into. Carl chose to stop his truck. Nora chose to keep that phone. Rita chose to fight a battle that wasn't hers. And I chose to walk through the dark to get back to my son. Family isn't who you're born to. Family is who shows up. Ethan and I had time now. Time. We had all the time we needed. And somewhere in his dreams, he had always known I was coming. Dinosaurs didn't really go extinct. They just changed. So did I.